Hello and welcome to Kiss My Arts. I'm Mary Blake and I'm here in the Glens Centre in Manorhamilton. I'm very happy to be here in North Leitrim and I'm joined today by Treasa Nealon. Treasa, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thanks for having me in your home turf, in your Glens that you know so well. So Treasa, you have been working here in the Glens and you have a theatre company called the Riot Theatre Company, and I have been following it for a while and it's very interesting. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
So I graduated IT Sligo, I think, in 2014. I lose track of the years very easily. I lose track of days. But I think it was 2014, and around 2 years later, my friend Sonia Norris, who was in my year in IT Sligo, she'd done design and I'd done acting. She came to me and she was like, I really want to do a production of Alice in Wonderland. And she was like, I know you write plays. Would you like to write this script or adapt the book into a script? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And then we were like, well, we may as well make a theatre company under it. And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do that. So that's how the Rabbits Riot started. And we've been going now since, I think we're 5 years next year.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And it is such a unique type of theatre company. And I think that's because you're two creative people. So Sonia is somebody that you met in Sligo IT. Yeah. Both of you were studying there in that fantastic facility we have there in the Performing Arts degree course.
Yeah.
So, and that enthusiasm of youth and creativity, I think, is fantastic, because sometimes we look back and you just think, how did we think? What were we thinking? But it's great that you had that and you just went for it and you build it and they will come.
Yes, and a lot of it was when you leave college, you expect to kind of leave your local area and go into a new job, and in a new area like in Dublin or Galway, or to emigrate. And that is what I was going to do. I was going to move to Dublin, I was going to move to Galway, but finding accommodation and finding jobs up there it was impossible. So when Sonia came with the idea for the theatre company and then basing it here, I was like, it's a fantastic idea, because there is not, like, there's theatre companies in the Northwest, but there's not a lot of them, and there's not a lot of young ones who are willing to try anything and do anything. So it was kind of perfect.
Yes, it just worked out really well. And the fact that so have you different creative styles, and do you both bring something different to the company, or do you kind of go along the same path?
Well, Sonia is fantastic, like, designer. She's just such a beautiful artistic head on her. She's going to laugh at that, calling her big artistic head. But she's just fantastic at that. So and she's a very good director. Whereas I love writing. So a lot of the stuff that we do would be written by me. And I did train as an actor, so occasionally I dabble in that. But I also love producing stuff. I love the organisation of things. I'm always the one who's like, well, this could go wrong, and making sure it doesn't go wrong. That's my...
Okay, so you kind of keep the order. She has that creativity. I've seen she really is good with her hands as well, and she's great vision and colour and style and everything that she puts her hand to really comes out looking beautiful, and which is a very important part. And that has become your trademark, really, and what makes you different.
Yeah, we don't want to put ourselves in one box, I suppose. So we've done a lot of outdoor work. We've done stuff like at Glencar Waterfall. We did a production one, Culture Night, on an island near Innisfree.
Yes.
By Parks Castle. And then, of course, the Culture Night just there, we did 3 productions, like at Creevely Abbey and in Glenfarn Forest. And then at Glenaid Lake, which we've done something there before. So we love that sort of stuff. We love working with young people. I love working with young people, full stop. I just think they're great. But we also like to work with serious subjects, because, with the writing that I sometimes do, we kind of touch on stuff like alcoholism and abortion and the mother and baby home. So we've done a few productions like that.
So you don't shy away from these social issues either,
yes,
even though when working with children, obviously it's another part of your work. And I have seen the quiet monologues that you did there for Culture Night, and they were beautiful. And really, it's wonderful that you saw this as an opportunity. It's Culture Night. We're in the middle of this lockdown, and it's spoiling all the crack. But so you pull on other people. So obviously you have to get somebody to do sound, somebody to put it all together, and actors from the community. Yeah. Where do you start? Do you start with the idea, or do you look at the people around you?
Usually we start with an idea, and then we go to get the people. So when Culture Night was coming around, I suppose me and Sonia, I suppose we're both lucky to have each other because we keep each other fresh and we always have new ideas. And when lockdown happened, we did so many projects for the first few months, a lot of it online. Obviously, all it was online. But we didn't kind of stop and go like, oh no, our careers are over. And it's still extremely scary. And we still don't know what's going to happen next year for us. But we also know we had to adapt quickly. So when Culture Night came around, I actually not sure how I came up with the idea, but I was like, we'll do a video and we'll do it in these locations and we'll do it about these women who are based in these locations. And, we applied for the Leitrim County Council and they said, yeah, that's a great idea. So that's when we started to go, okay, well, how are we going to do this? So we got actors who are from the Northwest, and there's some fantastic actors in the Northwest, like professional and amateur. And I suppose I don't like the word amateur either, because there's some amazing actors who, do the circuit or they do local theatre company plays, and they're phenomenal. They're brilliant, and just I feel like just because they're not paid or it's not their day job, to me, they're still
absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of those, as you say, on the circuit, a lot of those people, you watch them and you think they are as good as anybody who has done it for pay, but they're getting paid in another way. They just can't keep away from it. They just love it. Yeah. But the talent, you're right. The talent is really, really rich around here. Leitrim in general, North Leitrim has so many artists living in the area now, so many across all fields of the arts. And do you have any idea why that is?
I don't know if the housing cheap in Leitrim.
Yeah, well, that helps.
That could be it. Yeah. But I think it's because it's so beautiful and it's like you forget about it during lockdown. Everyone was stuck in their houses, and then I met a friend one day and we had coffee, and we drove around, just kind of like drove around, and I was like, oh, I forgot how pretty Leitrim was, and there's so much history and there's like a richness in Leitrim. And I think, when you leave and come back, like a lot of people do that and they say like, oh my God, I've forgotten how beautiful it was. Or people who've never been here before and you take them around, they're just like in awe.
And then you look at it through their eyes. When you have a visitor coming and you're, as you say, going for a drive or going for a walk, you do kind of admire it again and realise that it is a beautiful place. So that there are artists who have chosen to come and live here in Leitrim, and then there's our homegrown artists like yourself. So I'm going to take you back. You're from Manorhamilton originally. You went to St. Clair's primary school and the comprehensive school here. And when did you first know that the arts and theatre in particular was something that you wanted to do?
I started doing youth theatre when I was maybe 14 or 15, and I just really enjoyed it. I felt comfortable in it. I felt comfortable going into the space. Like that's when I started really getting to know the Glens Centre. And then as I got, up to Leaving Cert, I was like, I think performing arts is what I want to do. I think I want to be an actor, or I want to work in that kind of career. And that's my what do you call them? The career advisor people. Career guidance. She pointed me in direction of IT Sligo because I was going to look at NUIG, but their course was very much English and geography
and that, and I think that was a really wise choice because I do think a lot of theatre courses in universities and colleges are quite academic. And a lot of us who are drawn to theatre because we love getting up on our feet and doing it and playing with it, I think the Sligo IT has really proven to be probably the best in the country for that.
Yeah, and it's really grown, I think, in the past few years. They now have a master's in performing arts, which is something I'm going to look at in the future. And yeah, it's a great course. Lectures are fantastic. And I think what made it great is that the classes were so small. You knew everyone in every year. It wasn't like going into a big lecture hall and not knowing anyone. So you knew everyone in every year. The lecturers were really they were so good to everyone. You could contact them and know that your email wouldn't be lost within 150 other emails in their inbox.
Absolutely. And Rona Trench, of course, the Leitrim woman, is the head of that department. And it is very interesting that you say that being a part of that small group and the nature of the work you're doing, that workshop and that playing, for want of a better word, with one another, it must start to feel like a little family at the end of it.
Oh, it was totally a little family. And I think it's a good thing of what theatre is like. Anyway, when you leave college or when you go into a job, it was like, a little family, and then you leave that little family, but then you go into a next little family. And that's what like the arts, I think, particularly theatre and film can be, is that it's so intense and you're so close to the group of people for like a really short period or maybe slightly long period, but then suddenly that's finished. And then you go into another family. It's really bonding, I suppose. And the fact that we have to get over each other's shortcomings and get on with it and help each other out. I mean, there's no point in being a beautiful, shining star if everybody else isn't coming along with you and isn't supporting each other. It's never just about one person in a show. Oh, it never is. And I say that when we do shows with younger people or when I work with younger people, it's not about that at all. Like the lead might have the most lines, but if you're in the background rolling your eyes and kind of like with your, like, in a huff, it totally puts off the scene. So everyone is like
equally important.
And when I sometimes do help direct the shows in the musical down in St. Clair's, and even people who do the stage managing, they're as important as the people who are singing and dancing on stage. And I tell them that because if they don't put a chair out, it actually can ruin an entire scene. Not ruin, but it can. Everyone's important and everyone is a part of what happened, like what's going on.
And I think that's a very good life lesson for young people to know that. In general, it's just the respect of everybody else. And, it's not just about one person. And your energy, if you dip your energy, okay, you're only over on the side of the stage, supposed to be drinking a cup of tea. But if you drop your energy, we all feel that,
Yeah, everyone's important with each other. And I try to make sure to thank everyone when a show is finished or when they're about to start, and tell them all, break
to
legs
acknowledge that it took more than a handful of people to put this thing on the road. And even the support you need, especially working with young people, you need mammies to be dropping them and dads to be waiting in the car in the cold weather. Yes. And we do, it takes a village to raise a child, but it really does in theatre as well. It takes a lot of people to get behind it. And,
we would have every Christmas, started, I think, 2017, we started doing big Christmas shows here, and it's mostly young people in the cast. So, they became a little family every year, and unfortunately we can't do it this year because of COVID. We're hoping to do something alternative. And it's a lot of work every year, like, rehearsals 3 times a week, and it gets so intense, and they're just amazing kids because they're so young. They're so young, but they're so like passionate.
And do you find as they get older that they lose some of that enthusiasm, or if you keep them with you, can they keep it?
Well, I think personally the young people at the moment, even though I'm not that older than most of them, but I feel like there's so much projects going on that I think it might keep their attention more. I think anyway, if acting is into a career that you want to do in the future, I think it's a great pastime. And it's a great thing to do as you're growing up, because it gives you such confidence. A lot of the young people that I work with, you see some of them totally blossom over a couple of years, and they just have 10 times more confidence than I would at their age, which is incredible.
And that's very satisfying for you as facilitator to witness that.
Yeah, it really is. And I, they're so great. Some of them are now contacting, going can I have a support letter for this or that. And I'm like, of course.
I'm delighted.
You can have all of the support letters.
I support you wholly and fully. And when you joined Youth Theatre here in the Glens in Manorhamilton, who was running it at that point?
I think it was Emma Ponch was running it. And then that was maybe for the first year or two. And then Declan Drohan came in.
Yes.
And now I work with Declan Drohan with the seniors. So it's kind of gone full circle.
So it was great. Declan, of course, works in Sligo IT and the Performing Arts course as well. And it's a really great scoop for you to have him here facilitating. I mean, he's so qualified and experienced.
Yeah, and he's always he's always improving his skills or upskilling his skills, or upskilling is the word. He's always upskilling. He's been doing a lot of workshops in like Europe.
Yes, Chekhov, isn't it?
Chekhov, yeah. And he brings them back into the rehearsal room, and it's really cool to watch and you see like the kids do it, because I'm like, I don't think they realize that they're doing like this actual proper intense work that normally a child that age would not get that experience. And it's brilliant to see people like Declan, who is still, as experienced as he is, he's still wanting to learn more. And I think that is the thing about the whole creative process for all art forms, is like, there's always something else out there. There's always, we can be better, we can do, different, we can open our eyes to what's going on. And it's really positive to see that he is still bringing that back here to our little town of Manorhamilton. Oh, yes.
And passing it on to the kids. So we're grateful for people like that, really. It's wonderful to have it. So that was you in Youth Theatre, and then into Sligo IT, into that course you talked about. Was there work placement involved in that? There
was a year, I think called it semester 6. I think it was when we were in third year. So towards in Sligo, it was, you've already paid for your accommodation. That was the thing. So you can't really go off, when you're a student, you can't really go off to Dublin or to another country to kind of get work experience, because there's that kind of economic side to it. So a few people did. I stayed in Sligo and I wrote some shorts, film scripts. And actually that's where I realised, I quite like writing scripts. Like when I was a child, I used to write, fan fiction. It wasn't fan fiction. I called it friend fiction, because it was all my friends. It was my friends loved it. I used to write stories about my friends doing things, and they thought it was great. So you were going, it was like you and your friends having some kind of adventure. Yes, yeah. So I called it friend fiction. And so I always had like a love for writing, but when in semester 6 when I started writing those scripts, I was like, I quite like writing scripts. And one of the scripts I wrote in semester 6, when I left college, the Cork Arts Theatre do a 10 by 10 production every year, so it's 10-minute scripts. Yes. So I gave them that script and they were like, we like this and we're going to produce it as part of this event. And I was like, okay. And then that's how I started getting into writing. So semester 6 and college really influenced me in that. When I was there was no kind of playwriting, there's no like intense playwriting course. There was kind of a short one. Yes. I think Donal O'Kelly did with us as a guest lecturer, but there wasn't anything that was really a module as such. Yeah. And that set you, so it is these little crossroads along the way that can really set up something in the future. Yeah. And are you always writing? I'm a very bad writer in the sense that I don't have any rhyme or reason to it. I should be always writing. I'm always reading, and I think that helps me sometimes. But usually I like writing knowing that there's an end goal in sight, or knowing that it's going to be produced into some sort of capacity. I'm very good under pressure. So you need a deadline. So I need a deadline. If I said to you, we need something written for next Friday, would you stay up night and day until it was ready? Depending on what it was, I'd be like, okay, let's... Yeah. Whereas you have the rest of your life to write a play, you kind of... there isn't the same urgency, I suppose. Yeah, because sometimes you feel... Because I know there's been times that I've wrote stuff and, you send it somewhere to like one, those kind of competitions. Yeah. They're looking for new scripts and it mightn't get anywhere. And you're like, but I put my heart and soul into it and I think it would be great. Maybe that's just, what's the word? not cocky or ignorant, not arrogant,
but it's your work, it's your baby, and we are sensitive to criticism, or sensitive to, I mean, criticism is one thing, but the deafening silence you get can be even more devastating, you know, because it is something you worked on. But I suppose preparing scripts for little competitions and entries, it's still your script and you still have it, and then you're building up a little repertoire, and if, you know, you could dust it off again, you know.
I think what a lot about it for me is it's the work that you put into it. So you might write the script and enter it into something and it goes nowhere. And it's obviously it's not the fault of anyone if it doesn't get chosen for something, but sometimes it's like you work so hard on something, but then you don't get any, not even recognition, because, you know, with other jobs or with other careers, you know, somebody might you might be told, will you build this website? And we're going to, and maybe some other people in your job are told, will you help build this website for this company? The company will pick the best website. And maybe your website doesn't get picked, but you still get paid. Whereas when you're a writer, that's not. So that's why I kind of like working with an end goal in sight, because at least, even if it's something that doesn't get paid, I know that'll go up on stage and something else might come out
and
of it.
it will have its day. So project-based, so something that you can work on and see it finished, not just writing to God knows where.
I
know.
So maybe, that's kind of what I'm like,
Yeah, well, it's great, because, I mean, your work is so nice. And I suppose for a young person like you, is the way young people in their teens and 20s, is the way that they consume the arts and theatre and acting. You know, now people are, I suppose, seeing it on YouTube or whatever. Is theatre going to lose out?
I don't think it is. I hope it's not. I know when we're doing the culture night thing just there, everyone was so excited about it that it was going to be live. Our last show in particular with Sheila O'Keefe. So at the time you could only have 15 people in an outdoor audience, and then I think it changed the week before it turned to 15.
Oh, it's changed very suddenly.
Yeah, you see, that's another thing, it keeps changing. But we had, and that 15 people includes like crew and cast. So we had that full 15 people there, but it seemed almost like a full house. Yes. And technically it was a full house, but in the full house, I felt like there's so much more people there. Yeah, I think young people consume everything on their phones these days. And I think with theatre, even talking about my theatre company, because I think like tech stuff can cost a lot of money. But with big theatre companies and big like venues, I think it's important to try keep away or find a way that they can do live theatre that's also intrinsic to technology and to phones and stuff.
Okay. So to meet those two worlds a little bit, you know, to not lose out on theatre, because we don't want to see them. They're not museums, you know. We really want to keep them going, and there's such good work. When you were growing up, were there people in the community that you think influenced your where you are today?
Well, here the Glens Centre definitely did. I'm so lucky. I know now that I was so lucky to have this here, and everyone like after me is so lucky to have this venue. And so definitely the Glens Centre was just totally and these small art centres, I suppose we have them all over the country now, and it is brilliant that the theatre is on our doorstep. Oh, it's fantastic.
And the quality of stuff that has come into this theatre, you know, there's a lot of homegrown talent and as well, but there's been great visiting artists and visiting troupes here, and you've been working here last year. You were working here. I know it was probably cut short with COVID and everything. It was different to how you expected. And how did you find working in the Glens?
Oh, I loved working in the Glens because it was like different every day. Getting to meet and talk to different artists was incredible, and the stories of you know, there's some totally like artists are eccentric, and I met some very eccentric people, but it was great, you know. It's just such a busy, well, maybe not now, it's quite that busy, although the first gig happened a few weeks ago. It was a quartet came in, which is brilliant to have, and I think like people are hungry for live events, so I think we'll be fine. It will be a struggle, and I think people need to go out and support not just their local venues, but like small businesses in their community to just
absolutely and keep remembering those shops that kept their doors open for us, and really, you know, it is so important to remember and keep our own communities viable and alive. It is true. I saw you do a lot of off-site theatre work as well. As beautiful as it is to work in the Glens, you seem to use the environment and the world around you. You mentioned Glencar Waterfall. It was about a year ago or something. You did something really gorgeous there with lighting, and what was that?
So we've been there twice. I think our first ever culture night was at Glencar Waterfall, and we did a production of W.B. Yeats's poem Stolen Child. So that was kind of a co-production with the Glens Centre, and Susan McKay was here at the time. So and then Ray Duffy was also here at the time. So the waterfall was all lit up, and the audience, there was hundreds and hundreds in the audience. It was, because it's a free event, but we were still so surprised at all the people that turned up. And basically they went up through the path, and there was fairies dancing and reciting the poem. We also had a bagpipe player. He was playing his pipes.
So it was a sense of, so it was kind of a little bit magical.
Yes, it was so magical. And then we did it with the Yates Society then last year again.
Great.
And it was still...
So that has been, that's very well received. Your Facebook page, which is Rabbit's Riot Theatre Company, you put a lot up on that. That's been a very active page, actually.
Yeah, I run the social media stuff. So I felt like actually before lockdown, it was kind of quiet, because usually the beginning of the year, we don't have a lot of projects on, so it's usually quiet. And then during lockdown, when you think it would be quiet, it was just going all day.
Because people were still, you work with the actors from, are these actors that you saw a girl from Galway and people from around the country? Are they people you knew from college, or are they just actors you met along the way?
That was the monologues that I wrote. Yes, those wee monologues. I decided I was like, I'll write these small little monologues. I'll do one every week until it ends. So the first girl was Mairead Folan, and she has a theatre company in Galway called No Ropes Theatre Company. So she'd be a good friend of mine. Like, she's a fantastic theatre practitioner. But a lot of the other people were people I kind of know vaguely, and some people I haven't even met before, who contacted me and seen what was happening and were like, oh, is there any way I could do one? And I was like, yes, of course, Brilliant. And then I was luckily got funded from the Leitrim County Council for that project. So I got to pay those actors, which is, it's so important to pay people. And
I know it is so important to pay people, because these people have been really, and actors and musicians and artists have been very generous over COVID time. Actually, there's been so much work going out there, but I mean, how would we all have gotten through lockdown without artists, without TV shows, without music, without books? It is really what kept us sane. So we have to keep them in the industry.
Oh, totally.
We don't want them getting another job and never coming back.
You see, that's the thing as well. I don't think people totally understand, is that a lot of artists give so much of themselves with their work, and all of the work that was on, especially during the first few months, that they were giving on for free. And we consume art every single day, even if it's just on Netflix or if we're flicking through a magazine. And I don't think people realise that, how important it is to keep the arts funded, and to remember these people who are artists who like work from job to job. Like, it's so, even myself now, it's so hard to know what you're going to do or what your next thing is. You don't want to make a move wrong either.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there needs to be a system in place where people can do their art and be able to work.
And to have that work acknowledged and paid for. I mean, it's not a dirty word to look for money for your work. I mean, where else would you expect, you wouldn't expect a plumber to come in and, put in a new shower for you because he's good at it and because he likes doing it. We have to value these people. And I think we do realise, since the recessions we've lived through and now this current crisis, it is what makes Ireland quite unique. And I think it is, people don't come here for the weather. They come here for the arts, and it is something that we're very good at. We're good talkers, we're good storytellers, and I think we should really value that as part of our identity and who we are. I think it's really important. You have a new podcast.
Yes.
Treasa. It came out, the first one came out at the end of September. The next one, we're looking forward to the end of October. Yeah. I was listening to, it's a lovely forum for artists in the Northwest. Will you tell us a little bit about it?
So it's called Artists Like Rabbits. Very happy with the name. I was very happy when I came up with that. So a month or two ago, I was kind of like sitting at home, and I seen people on Twitter joking about all these podcasts that have popped up over like quarantine, and I was like, oh, that's funny. Yeah, I'll never do podcast. And then in the back of my head, I was like, actually, maybe it would be cool to do a podcast, like a monthly one with the Rabbits Riot, just to showcase some of the wonderful work people do. And we've worked with some fantastic people, and I was like, I feel like their work should be acknowledged. So we have a women's group, and during lockdown, we created this online, it's on our website, it's called Women Through Time. So it was work that the women created about women who influenced them and inspired them. It's like women past and present. And it was meant to be in Cafa Bia Sláinte. And then, of course,
that closed,
yes. And we couldn't do it anyway, so it became online. So we decided for the first episode to ask the ladies to record themselves reciting their poems and explaining what their poems are about. So Andrea and Grania both contributed to the first episode.
Beautiful. Very different ones, actually. Yes. Two of them very contrasting.
So different, yeah.
And which is really interesting.
Just fantastic.
Yeah, that's right. So that Coinini women's group. So who set up that? Is that kind of an offshoot of the Rabbits?
Yeah, it's a little offshoot. So with the Leitrim Women's Centre, we came together and we were like, let's do a women's project. And Creative Ireland funded the first term of it. And we're getting ready actually now to go into more workshops with Across the Line, where we're going to be talking about how the borders influenced our lives as women. So it's a really fantastic group of all ages. Some women who've lived here all their lives or who moved here years ago, and two women who moved quite recently in the last year or two. So it's a great way of meeting women in the locality and
building community and support.
Community. Yeah, that's
and the women's group, is it a creative group or is it just a group of women? Everybody welcome?
Oh, everyone's welcome, and we do creative stuff in it, but everyone has like different skills, and it's more about kind of exploring the skills, but also conversation and talking about each other's lives. It's helped, like, you know, a lot of really deep conversations have come out of it. It's very very bonding. You learn so much. It's
fantastic. How long is that going, Treasa?
It started last September.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And you've survived. I mean, for a new group to have survived this lockdown as well, I mean, it's a great achievement. And is it that yourself and Sonia as well?
Yeah, so me and Sonia would be facilitating.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah. And where does that meet in
the Women's Centre, and now we're meeting, I think, in the Glens Arts Centre now for the Cross the Line workshops.
Brilliant. So everything. So from talking to you today, it's so interesting because one thing has really led to another. Yeah. I mean, there has been little stepping stones, even if it probably didn't feel like that for you at the time. But everything kind of takes a logical step forward, and this Women Through Time has ended up, you know, having a platform with your podcast. Is the podcast going to continue as always women, or are you leaving it open to artists from the area?
Oh, it's open to everyone. Yeah. So we have the next few planned at the moment. But it's exciting because I'm learning my skills as Brilliant. I go around. Like, I never worked with sound in the sense of, like, we're using a software called Audacity, which is amazing because it's free, and I think that's fantastic. Whoever set that up is...
And thank you to them.
All of the karma to them. But I'm learning as I go along, which is kind of scary, but it's also fun. And I find people are so generous as well with the arts. But my friend Ronan McManus, we announced that the podcast was happening on social media, and I met him at the weekend. And he was like, oh, just out of the blue, it was like, I've made a song. I've created music for you to use for your podcast if you want. And I was like, wow, like, that's so generous. And I think artists are so generous with their time and their skills. They're so generous with it.
Brilliant. And it's a lovely little jingle because it's so fresh. It's not chintzy and techie like we hear a lot, but I mean, it's a very wholesome kind of guitar riff and it's kind of cool. So fair play to him. It is great. Yeah. So we're looking forward to hearing your next one at the end of October. And how do we find your podcast?
So we're on Spotify at the moment, and we'll post it up every month when it comes up. And
you'll post that also on your Rabbits Riot Theatre Company. I'd really recommend that people like that page actually, because there's a lot of little tidbits on that, and Treasa and Sonia are always coming up with interesting, crazy and fun stuff. So I'm putting that up. So it's always something worth having a look at. And I suppose we'll find out more about the podcast on that as well. So that's very good. So listen, thank you so much. We've gone over time. I knew we would, because I knew there was so much to get through with you. You're so accomplished for a young person, and we're very lucky to have you working here with young people and people in our community. So thank you for the work you do. Treasa Nealon.
Thank you.